And I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 7:01. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. And we are having the Platteville Common Council meeting via Zoom. So Candace, I think there's Candace somewhere. Yes, Candace. We'll start with roll call.
Barb Doss.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Robin Klein.
Here.
Isaac Shanley.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Jason Arts.
Here.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda after roll call is a special presentation. Is Doug on? Doug. You guess, Jody. Doug, do we expect Jeff to come on at any time tonight?
I'm here, Barb.
Yes, I see you're here. I said, did we expect Lieutenant, our retiree Jeff Haas to come on anytime tonight?
I don't know if he was going to come on or if he was going to look at the YouTube version later.
Okay. Well, the first thing on our agenda then is a proclamation, a special recognition and proclamation acknowledging Jeff Haas's 25 years of service and dedication to the city of Platteville. So I will read through that proclamation. Recognition of Lieutenant Jeff Haas, 25 years of outstanding service and dedication to the city of Platteville. Whereas Jeff Haas has faithfully served the city of Platteville since 1995 and served as a patrol officer, officer in charge, police sergeant, and support services lieutenant. And whereas Jeff has shown his commitment to the city of Platteville by serving on the tactical response team, as a field training officer, and as the department's emergency vehicle operations instructor during his tenure. And whereas Jeff's focus on evaluating and implementing new technology at the Platteville Police Department has led to improvements and upgrades that will continue to serve the Platteville community for decades to come. And whereas Jeff has embodied the spirit of public service in faithfully, diligently, and honestly executing his duties as the department's primary evidence custodian. And whereas Jeff's professional talents have contributed to making the Platteville community a better and safer place to live, work, and play, now therefore I, Barb Dawes, Common Council President of the City of Platteville, on behalf of the Common Council and city employees, both past and present, do hereby wish to express our sincere appreciation to Lieutenant Jeff Haas for his dedication and service to the city of Platteville. This one is signed and dated this day of June, the 23rd of June. And I believe Jeff's last day of work was the 5th. Is that right, Doug? Okay. So we wish Jeff the best in his retirement. All right. And thank you, Jeff. If you're listening, if wherever you are, thank you very much. All right, we will go on now to consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussions. Please indicate if you would prefer separate discussion and action on any of these items. We have the council minutes from June the 9th. We have payment of bills. We have appointments to boards and commissions, and I have several tonight. First, and Candace, I did send you a whole list of these, so you don't have to try to keep track as we go on. First, to the Commission on Aging, there are 3 appointments that are for 3-year terms, and these are all reappointments: Ellen Stelflug, Joyce Boss, and John Klosterman. And I have one for a partial term that is 1 year in length, and I am appointing Larry McReynolds to that position. To the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term, Beth Frieders. I have 3 appointments to Parks, Forestry, and Recreation. To 3-year terms, I will appoint Lacey Taylor and Derek Hubbard. And to the partial term, which is a 2-year term, Ben Belke. Solid Waste and Recycling Task Force, This is a group with 5 people. Robin had already been appointed as council rep. Gary Munson and Amy C. Booth Wilson had agreed previously to serve. And I have Mike Osterholz has also agreed to serve. I am looking for someone yet who is a renter of a single family home or a duplex. That's been more difficult for me to find. Not necessarily a big apartment building, because these our recycling and solid waste contract does not serve multifamily apartment buildings. Those have separate contracts with the owner of those buildings. So I'm looking for somebody who's a renter in a single family home or a duplex. And then the final one, the tourism committee, and these are all reappointments. Terry Malliot from the Country Inn and Suites, representing the hotel and motel owners and operators, Deb Jenny, Deb Rice, and Michael Brightman. So those are the appointments for tonight. Going on, we have 1- and 2-year operator licenses as were detailed in the packet, and a junk dealer license for Chandler Salvage. And the salvage yard isn't actually on Court Street, it's actually on East Pinole Street, but the Chandlers live at 670 North Court Street. And then we have permits, a banner for Wisconsin Badger Camp from November 16th to December 4th, and then the fireworks for the 4th of July permit. So what's your pleasure, folks, on the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Kathy to approve the consent calendar as presented. Candace will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Art.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're at that point on our agenda where we have citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. And generally speaking, these would be comments, observations, or petitions that do not relate to one of either the action or information and discussion items. And as I look across my screen, I see James. James, are you here for this section of the agenda, or to just observe, or do you want to speak to one of the action items or information and discussion items? Jody, you'll have to. James?
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes.
All right,
Well,
yep, we
actually,
can hear you. And James, give your full name, and if you're gonna speak now, or do you want to speak later?
you asked me now, so I'll respond now.
Okay, James, could I have your full name and your address? That's customary.
My name is James Wages. My
Okay.
current address is 250 Herman Street. That's with
Okay.
2 N's,
Okay, in Platteville.
Platteville, yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Well, actually, I was just wanting to do an observation of just how your entire process worked. But since you did, when you began this meeting, you had talked about the appointments and the time frames. And I just did have one basic question about that. And so, I mean, I can ask that now, but basically I was just going to maintain to observe the whole meeting after that. So my
Okay.
question was this: how are you able to determine which is a 2-year appointment or a 3-year appointment? I understand one's a partial and one's a full term. How is that determined?
well, if each committee, board, or commission has in their formation, there is a determination whether it'll be 1-year terms, 2-year terms, 3-year terms. We have some 4-year terms. We have some 5-year terms. We have some 6-year terms. And frankly, James, I have no idea how that was set in the beginning. That's as much a mystery to me as it is to you.
Okay.
Now, why did some people get 2-year versus 3-year on the same committee? If someone were to live in Platteville and they leave their committee appointment, maybe they have to move away, or maybe their circumstance changes so that they can't serve anymore and they resign, then we appoint someone to fill that partial term. So
Okay.
that's why there was one or two that were 2 or 1 year terms because we had some people who have moved away, and so we had to fill that.
Yeah.
We filled that spot as a partial.
Well, that's the reason I asked, because I had been appointed to a term, and then I learned later on that it was only a 2-year term, and then I was informed that I was going to be appointed to a 3-year. So I just didn't understand how that process worked, and I just wasn't quite sure. So thank you.
That's what happened. You probably got appointed to a partial term, and I suspect that the letter of appointment doesn't say, due to someone's resignation, we're giving you a partial term.
No. Thank you.
I suspect that's true. All right, so James, any other thing?
No, that's fine. Thank
All
you.
right, great. Let's see, I see Frank. Frank, are you here to speak tonight at this time, or do you want to speak at any time tonight? Frank King. So Jody, oh, there we go, Frank.
Yes. I guess I'll give my name. My name is Frank King. I live at 1265 Sunset Drive in Platteville.
Okay.
So I've been talking to Adam and Doug regarding a town hall forum discussing the recent events that occurred in Minneapolis and across the country, and addressing systemic racism, and wanted to see how we can work with getting the school board, the members of the school board, members of the Common Council, members of the university, leadership from the university involved to have a discussion to hear some grievances from people, and also to address any type of issues that pertain to Platteville exclusively.
And Frank, I believe, Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on tonight's information and discussion section, we have an inclusivity update, and I suspect, Adam, that you're going to report on conversations that have been had and conversations that we're planning. So Frank, we have not forgotten this. It's
Okay.
just that sometimes it's hard to move. It seems like you move terribly slow, but when you involve more people, sometimes it takes a bit longer. So
Yeah.
we will have that update, and I'll have, and at that point in time, I don't know, Adam, did you send the inclusivity update to anybody? The part in the packet?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. Just to the Common Council, but it is online. Okay.
Yes.
It's in the packet online. Okay, so Adam, there's a statement that we'll discuss in a little while. If you have a computer besides the one you're on, or if you have a phone that you can look up, you can find the Common Council packet for tonight at platteville.org under the council, and maybe you can follow along. If we were in the council chambers, we would distribute that. But.
Yeah, and I had sent Frank an invite to join this meeting based on the conversations, as he said. He's been meeting with Doug and I.
Yep.
Wanted him to be here to talk about to continue this conversation. And this is the first time, obviously, the council has been able to kind of hear about it. So yes, we're going to discuss it further when we get there. Okay,
and Frank, Jesse Lee Jones, our librarian, just sent the link in the chat feature to everyone. If you have that available, if you can do that. And Bill Post, I see you're here, but I know that you're probably here to talk about action item A, the Fire Department Comprehensive Analysis RFP. If that's the case, show me a thumbs up. There we go. All right. So I think we're through citizens' comments. The only other people I see are either staff or press. All right. So let's go on to reports. The only report in the minutes or in the packet today was the Community Safe Routes report. Jason, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. So let's move on then to the first of the action items, which is the Fire Department Comprehensive Analysis. And Adam and Ryan and Bill, I think that this is your item.
That's right. We'll start diving into this. So obviously what we're looking for tonight is the council to hopefully make a decision on approving one of the RFP requests. So just to kind of recap, obviously as one of our strategic city goals that we have this year was to look into doing a fire station comprehensive and conceptual plan. So we had a couple of different council meetings to kind of figure out what we thought we really wanted to put into that RFP. And we issued that out on April 20th, gave until May 15th for firms to kind of submit their proposals. We received 6 proposals from various different firms and brought that information to the council. And what was recommended was to create a subcommittee that had a common council rep on there, city staff, somebody from the Police and Fire Commission, and then also Bill Kloster, who's here tonight, has been part of the kind of what I would call the grassroots marketing and kind of fundraising organization that we've been working with since I got here. What happened is we had a couple of different meetings that subcommittee met and looked over all of the proposals. And what came out of that was the PAA/5 Bugles proposal was the one that the subcommittee seemed to rise to the top as far as their recommendations. So we actually held a Zoom meeting with them on, Doug's falling over. All right, we're okay. Hold on. So we held a Zoom meeting on June 9th with PA and 5 Bugles where many of the subcommittee members were able to meet and kind of ask some various questions that they had about the proposal. And after that meeting, it really kind of, I think, strengthened the recommendation that came from that group. So what came out of it, obviously, is that subcommittee is recommending to the city council that they would ask that the RFP would be awarded to Public Administration Associates and 5 Bugles Design. So how that impacts the budget and kind of the fiscal impact, in the 2020 adopted budget, there was a capital line item that was created for $75,000 to be utilized towards the creation of this plan. At that point in time, we weren't quite sure what the actual costs were going to be, but we had anticipated that there would be $25,000 that would be set aside specifically from the city to help fund this project. And then working with kind of Bill and the grassroots organization, there would be a fundraising effort to fund the rest of the about $50,000. So if you look at the actual proposal that PAA and 5 Bugles submitted, it comes to a total of $38,500, and that's broken up with PAA doing the first 5 scopes of service, and that comes to $21,750. And then 5 Bugles Design would do the 6 through 8 scopes of service. So that would be, they have a $16,750 charge for that, which brings again to the total analysis cost of $38,500. So far we have $25,000 again that we have allocated in the city CIP budget. We have received $10,000 in donations from, I believe, the fire department has indicated they will donate $5,000, and then the American Legion, I believe, is the other organization that donated $5,000. So that puts us right now at $35,000 is the total. So there's a remaining amount to be funded of about $3,500, and that's where I did receive confirmation from Bill and Deb that they're working with another organization to get a $5,000 grant. I think that's one that we either have or they have indicated that they would be willing to essentially fund the remaining amount to kind of make up the difference. So as far as the budget goes, we have the funds pretty much wrapped up that would cover the cost for PA and 5 the comprehensive analysis. And again, just to kind of summarize, PA would be coming in and doing the first 5 scopes of service, which again is kind of the 50,000 foot view. Let's look, 10, 15, 25 years down the road. Tell us what you think is going to be happening with the fire service. What potentially could be done as regional fire approach or different ways of paid on call or those type of analysis. And then the 5 Bugles portion of the scopes of service is really looking at the building scope itself. So taking a look at the current fire station, seeing if there's potential for a renovation or, based on the analysis of PAA, whether or not it would make sense there, or looking into the fact of if an alternate location would be needed, what would that be? And then kind of giving us an analysis of costs, figuring out what, this new fire station would be. So again, to kind of summarize, the subcommittee essentially recommended asking the council to award the RFP to PA and 5 Bugles for the amount not to exceed $38,500.
Okay. Let's see, Ryan, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I think Adam covered everything. Just want to thank the subcommittee members for taking the extra time to sort through all the RFPs that came in. So,
Okay, and Bill Closter, if you're going to speak, I need your address too.
Okay, it's Bill Closter, 975 Highbury Circle in Platteville. And I would like to recognize Adam and his effort in writing the RFP. He did a very good job, and it was alluded to in the presentation by PAA and Five Bugles that it was a very easy one to follow. I want to also emphasize that they were not chosen simply because they were the least expensive. They were chosen because they were the only ones of the six that answered the questions that we were looking for. The others were either going to do a heavy analysis of the current fire department and tell us what's wrong with our current fire department as opposed to what we need in a new building. And the other one of the others was going to design a fire station for us, which I think is the next step, not this one. But I would urge the council very strongly to pass this and let's get started. The quicker we can get on to the funding portion of this, the better off we're going to be.
Okay, I will now go around to council members and ask for any questions or clarifications. So Ken, do you have questions, clarifications, or concerns or anything relative to this RFP for the fire department comprehensive analysis?
No, I have no questions. I worked with this group before, so I've been pleased overall with their work.
Okay. Kathy?
Just-
Concerns, questions, comments?
Just a clarification for a timeline for the process.
Adam, do you want to speak to the timeline?
Yeah, so what'll happen is if PAA were awarded kind of the RFP, they'll basically come in and start working with the council and with the city on establishing a timeline. Tentatively right now, our plan is to try to have this completed right around the time of the budget so that we can get a better analysis. But they did indicate that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, they do feel they will be able to complete this by the end of the year.
Okay. So the timeline is,
Thank you.
I would say it's not overly aggressive, but it's, let's keep working on it and not let it sit around. Okay. Eileen, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, it sounds like a very good process. I have no questions.
Isaac, questions, comments, or concerns?
No questions.
Robin?
Sorry, thought I had it figured out. I don't know if this is the right time or place for the question, but does this organization have a history with helping to problem solve grant applications and how we might marry multiple needs together with this building?
Adam, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, that's a really great question, Robin. That came up in the discussion with the subcommittee, and they do have experience in kind of identifying certain grants that you can go after. So that is definitely something that I think we will be asking them throughout the process is, are they aware of, particularly grants or, not only that, but federal and state funding that you can go after for these things. Luckily, they have a pretty wide range of expertise. They have a couple of former, city administrators and managers that have obviously gone through the process. And then both Five Bugles and PAA have actual former fire chiefs. So they're somewhat aware of different things that you can go after. So I think that'll certainly come up in a lot of the conversation and hope that they'll be able to give some guidance on certain grants we can go after.
And Robin, I would say that just in my looking through the proposals, PAA and Five Bugles are a Wisconsin-based company. And a couple of these companies would have come in from like Maine or, I mean, I'm not sure they would have ever come here. And I'm not sure they would have had the knowledge of Wisconsin law and Wisconsin processes that perhaps the more regional Midwest companies would have had. So, Jason, comments, questions, or concerns?
No.
Okay, so I've been around. So folks, we're looking at the fire department comprehensive analysis. It's on for action tonight. Do I hear any other comments, or are we ready to take some action? And if so, do I hear a motion?
Well, I move to approve Public Administration Associates / Five Bugles design proposal for fire department comprehensive analysis for the city of Platteville not to exceed $38,500.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ken and a second, I believe that was Kathy. So Candace, we will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Unmute yourself.
Shanley,
Jesus.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our action agenda tonight is approval of the Walmart assessed value settlement. Adam.
All right.
Before you start, first of all, I want to thank all the common council members for the time and effort that you have put into this. And Adam, I want to thank you too. And also, if Jason Gehring were on, I would be offering him great thanks too. This was not pleasant in any way. And so now you can move forward, Adam.
No, I appreciate that. And obviously, yeah, staff and the council, I think we've all done a job. Obviously, this is a conversation we obviously wish we're not having. It's not fun to be talking about this stuff. And as kind of the staff note talks about, the dark store kind of and Walgreens loopholes definitely have a drastic impact on municipalities. And this is something obviously for the last couple of years, more and more municipalities are continuing to see challenges, like this that have a pretty drastic impact. Because as we've talked throughout this process, when these challenges occur and when you have to end up settling and either going to court, it ends up pushing, the fair share of property taxes on homeowners and small businesses. So obviously, to kind of recap, the situation that occurred here was, Walmart filed an excessive tax assessment action regarding its store located at 1800 Progressive Parkway. They challenged the city's tax assessments for 2018 and 19, and they also challenged throughout this process 2020 as well. The assessed value for the property both years in 2018 and 19 was $12.7 million, $12,711,700. So what happened is essentially in the reports filed by Walmart, they had the opinion the value of their property was between, $6.1 million in 2018 and $6 million in 2019. So going through the process, a court date was set for trial to occur on July 21st and 24th. And one of those requirements, obviously, was that both sides had to meet for mediation to see if there was the opportunity for a settlement. As we discussed throughout this process, the city felt that currently where it's being assessed at is where it should be. And we felt that process was being done correctly by our assessors. And we did feel confident that if we did have to go to court, we would have enough ability to challenge that. The concern that always comes up is obviously when it goes to the legal matter, it's the risk factor. They're asking for 6 million, we're at 12. So the lower that assessed value goes is the larger the impact that it has on obviously all of us as residential taxpayers and commercial taxpayers and small business taxpayers. So luckily through the conversation and through talks, we were able to come to an agreement that kept it relatively very close to where our assessed value was, at about $12,370,000. So again, not ideal, but what that equates to is essentially Walmart did agree that they would accept that for 2018, 2019, and 2020. So what currently will have to happen if this is approved by the council tonight is we will have to make a payment back to Walmart for roughly, it comes to $14,654.65 for the 2 tax years of 2018 and 2019. And what is currently happening right now for 2020 is our Jason Gehring, the lawyer that's working on this, is working with our assessor to try to change the tax bill for 2020 to indicate the current amount. If it doesn't happen, just because the border review did occur, is essentially it'll be the same thing. Walmart will make a payment to us for the assessed value of what it's at, the 12.7, and then we would end up having to essentially refund them the amount for 2020, whatever that would be. But they're currently working right now to try to get that into the assessor and get all that information into the state so that we wouldn't have to make a payment. But if for whatever reason we can't get that changed because the border review has kind of occurred, there would be an additional, obviously, payment then that we would have to make. So that's kind of where we stand right now, is after kind of talking with the attorney and talking with the council, the agreement was to have the settlement agreement brought forward for the council to review as action. So city staff, after attending the mediation hearing and confirming with legal counsel, we do recommend approving the settlement agreement with Walmart, thereby settling their assessed value for the property for 2018, 19, and 20 to be $12,370,000. So that's where we're at.
Okay, before we start around, Nicola, you carried this torch for the time being when you acted as city manager, and you've had responsibility for this. And so I was remiss in not also thanking you for all the work that you have done on this. And so thank you. And I'm sure other staff have been involved too, but certainly Nicola and Adam have carried the water on. So questions, comments, or concerns? Ken?
I have no questions. I'm satisfied with the settlement.
Okay, Kathy?
No questions.
Eileen?
You're on mute.
Unmute yourself, Eileen.
I don't have any questions, Barb, but I would just note for the public who's listening that this dark store issue has been ongoing for probably 4 to 5 years. We have worked with our local legislators to try to get this issue resolved. I'm hoping that they will continue to pursue a legislative solution because this could happen again in 2021.
And it can happen with other big stores, big box stores.
Correct.
Like Walgreens. There was a Walgreens settlement in Madison. Menards.
Right.
I suppose Farm and Fleet too. Okay, Isaac, questions, comments, or concerns?
No questions.
Robin?
No questions.
Jason?
No.
Okay, then I'm ready to take a motion on this settlement agreement. Approval of the Walmart assessed value settlement agreement.
Make a motion to approve the tax assessment settlement agreement between the city of Platteville and Walmart.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Isaac and a second by Ken to approve the settlement agreement. Candace will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, good. That concludes the action portion of our agenda tonight. So now we will move into information and discussion, the first of which is the 2021 proposed budget timeline. It's like we always talk about the budget, Adam. I suspect this is you.
I'll let Nicola
Or
take
is it Nicola?
Yep.
Either one is fine.
Nicola. All right, Nicola, you go ahead.
Okay. Yes, we're already approaching budget time again. I know you're all very excited about that. And this is pretty standard. We present this timeline to the council each year so that the council would have a chance to see the dates that have been proposed for various meetings and deadlines related to the formation of the budget. I think probably the one thing to draw out that's a little different from last year is that we are including the timeline for the airport budget and the water and sewer utility budget as well as the other budget departments. And so you'll see those represented on this timeline. If there's any questions about anything on here, I'd be glad to try my best to answer them.
Okay, so what I see on this is a special meeting of the council on Tuesday, August 18th, which would be the third Tuesday in August for a goal setting session. Okay, so I guess right now I would suggest to all council members that you mark your calendars for that third Tuesday in August, August 18th, for a goal setting session with a 6 p.m. rather than a 7 p.m. start. I know it gets really busy in August as people wrap up this and that, but so it's good to get that on the everyone's agenda right now. It appears then that the fourth Tuesday then in August, we would finalize those goals. So that's not a special meeting. And then it appears that the next special meeting would be a budget review session on the first Tuesday in October, which would be October 6th.
That's correct.
So right now, I'm suggesting all council members add to their calendars the August 18th and the October 6th meeting. And then there's, so in October, it's really every Tuesday night. I mean,
Yes.
you just might as well mark off every Tuesday night because it's every Tuesday night. And in order to be able to get this budget to where it needs to be and be able to publish it and be able to have our budget hearing and stuff. So right now it's August 18th and then the two Tuesday nights, the first and third, that otherwise are not. Now, Adam, this is goal setting. How does this tie in with any strategic planning?
So that's what we're going to be bringing to the council, obviously, at our next meeting, is kind of going over the strategic plan timeline. And by adding some of these extra meetings, our thought potentially was there's the opportunity to piggyback. Since we're going to be talking about community goal setting, that might be a good time to just consider that part of our strategic plan process. And that way we're kind of hitting two birds with one stone, use whatever fancy analogy you want to use. But that was our current thought process right now as I'm working with Ben, our city intern, and he's kind of working on creating a timeline and process that we're going to be bringing to you at the next meeting.
Okay, so is there any council member that has questions about the budget timeline? I'm not going to ask staff because they know. So I'll just make a quick round. Ken, any questions about the budget timeline?
No questions.
Kathy?
No.
Eileen?
No.
Isaac?
No.
Robin?
No.
Jason?
No.
Okay, so right now we have the timeline and we've all marked our calendar for August 18th and for the 2 extra Tuesday nights in October. And so we will we'll look forward to these discussions about budget. All right, next, then we can move on. There is no action. We aren't going to move that on to action. I don't think we take action on the budget timeline. We just, I don't think we've ever adopted it. Is that right?
We do usually have it as an action item, yes. for the
So you
next-
want that as, okay, then we will move that budget timeline to an action item for next meeting. Okay, next, inclusivity update. So Adam.
Yeah. All right. So
All right.
obviously this is, one of the City of Platteville's 2020 strategic priorities is to begin inclusivity conversations with the goal of developing an inclusivity plan. So obviously, since getting here in January, one of the first things we did to kind of continue down this path of achieving this goal was I attended the Midwest Cultural Inclusivity Conference that was held at UW-Platteville on February 27th, 28th. The conference was an amazing opportunity, obviously, to hear from speakers and attend seminars on a wide range of topics. Since then, I have been having conversations with, obviously, UW-Platteville, the Platteville School District, about how we can kind of, as a group, find ways to find common ground on things that we can all agree, on ways to be inclusive and kind of have a unified message. I've met with Angela Miller, the chief of staff, obviously with UW-Platteville, about, looking at ways where we can partner on things. Same thing with Jim Boble, with the superintendent. So one of the things, obviously, to kind of begin an inclusivity conversation is the city of Platteville staff, and I think the Common Council kind of need to review and agree on what the definition of inclusivity is, or how we want to go down. I think, obviously I wasn't here when those kind of conversations occurred, so I'm sure this topic was debated. So just to kind of refresh everybody's memories, or just to, to stoke dialogue a little bit, per Google Dictionary, inclusivity is defined as the practice or policy of including people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have had physical or mental disabilities and members of minority groups. So I think one of the things, obviously, as we continue down this journey, is we want to look at, ensuring that we all agree on what the definition of inclusivity is, and that we continue to kind of pioneer and market that. So obviously what I've done is, in talking with a lot of other, municipal leaders and managers, one of the first things they kind of have done in reviewing, what they've done to start their inclusivity journey, is they have created what's called an inclusivity or equity working statement. So the purpose of this statement is basically to articulate the city's commitment to and role in achieving a common vision of inclusivity. So what I did was provided is a draft statement that I put together to guide further discussion. And what I did is I looked at what other municipalities in the state of Wisconsin have done, and not only that, but nationally, what other municipalities have done, and just put this together. And again, this is a draft statement. There's an opportunity to change the wording if it's decided we don't want to go down this path at all. That's certainly open for conversation. But what I just put together was, it's the City of Platteville draft inclusivity statement. So the City of Platteville is committed to inclusivity. Inclusivity work aims to remove barriers and eliminate social and economic disparities by centering those who have been excluded from the decision-making process. Inclusivity is the pursuit of equal outcomes. We acknowledge that inclusivity, particularly racial inclusivity, is essential to providing exceptional public services and to create an inclusive and safe environment for everyone. The city recognizes that people of color and other communities continue to be marginalized and excluded, both intentionally and unintentionally, from constructing the institutions that govern our lives and the services we depend on to protect our health, safety, and well-being. We further acknowledge that structural and cultural barriers impact access to and representation in city government. The City of Platteville has a pivotal role in creating a sense of belonging for all people. We must be inclusive in developing and implementing policies to ensure that city services are responsive to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, religion, and other individual identities. We acknowledge that without an intentional focus on inclusivity, we will continue to perpetuate and deepen inequality. To realize our mission and core values, the City of Platteville commits to integrating inclusivity into the fabric of our organization and the delivery of public service in pursuit of equal, fair, and just outcomes for all. So what I saw a lot of municipalities do is they would come up with this type of statement and essentially solicit community feedback via, they would put it on their website, they would put it out on social media, and they would have some form of listening sessions to obviously gather information from community members, staff, and employees, and obviously the council. So the Common Council then at a future work session would then have the opportunity to review the input received from community members, staff, and then it would allow the council to propose any edits or revisions or make the decision if they even want to go down this road. So again, this is just one option that's kind of, I've seen that's available that I just wanted to put out there to start conversation. Obviously, the other thing that's occurred is, there a lot of municipalities have created what are called inclusivity teams, which essentially are made up of, usually it's a group of city staff, council members, and citizens This team would be tasked with meeting monthly and promoting an open platform for citizens to attend, to voice inclusivity concerns, as well as make recommendations to the Common Council for ways that potentially there could be inclusivity improvements. So that's one thing I think we've talked about, is creating some type of either a subcommittee or a working group that would meet monthly to kind of be that breaking ground. So obviously one of the main things we want to talk about tonight is, the incident in which George Floyd lost his life was heartbreaking and tragic. And when incidents like this occur, we're required as a municipality to review our training and approaches and how we deliver services. So as obviously the city manager for Platteville, I promise that our staff is committed to inclusivity and serving all members of the community. And we welcome open dialogue from all community members on ways the city can grow and improve. So, one facet obviously of inclusivity is race and racism. And obviously that's something we're going to focus on a little bit tonight, because that obviously is on the national stage. So it's something that I wanted to provide some options, but I also think we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is not going to be a one and done situation. And it's not the only thing we need to be focusing on. We obviously need to also be considering, everything else that involves inclusivity when it comes to gender, male, female, religion, statuses, everything. So I think I want to make that clear that although this meeting we're kind of focusing on, the racial aspect of inclusivity, but this isn't the only thing we're going to be talking about. I think as we move forward, this is going to be a continual push to talk about that. So obviously over the past couple of weeks, city staff has received outreach from the community members. We've met with Frank. I've obviously had conversations with James as well about certain things that have been occurring since I've been here. And so there's a variety of topics kind of related towards inclusivity when it revolves to racism and race that we wanted to kind of bring forth to the council to consider as things that we may want to go down. One of them obviously is the 8 can't wait use of force policy recommendations. That was something that has been on the national stage over the last 2 weeks. And since then, that has been asked by police chiefs across the nation to kind of comment to see where particularly our policy stands. So in recognition of that, Chief McKinley did issue kind of a statement that's been out on social media that talked about specifically how the Platteville Police Department aligns with those specific statements. Since then, both Chief McKinley and I today actually met with Will Sewer, who was at our last meeting, to kind of talk about that as well. So we've had numerous meetings with that. The other thing that we talked about is exactly what Frank brought up, is this idea of doing a Platteville Community Forum. So council leadership, Chief McKinley and I have been reviewing the May 2015 final report on the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, and how community input is requested through surveys and public forums to openly discuss policing. So obviously Chief McKinley and I have been approached by community members about having a community forum. And what we've been doing is I've been working with staff as well as with community leaders. Chief McKinley has been working with obviously the Grant County Sheriff's Department. I have reached out to the Platteville School District as well as the university. And on June 24th, there is going to be a meeting that's going to be held between the school district, myself, and the university to kind of further this discussion along of how we could have a community forum. And I think, some of the concerns that we have is obviously we want to be able to make sure that this topic definitely stays on task for whoever the moderator is, and that, we understand we're talking about specifically, race, and that we don't want people to come in and kind of, hijack the meeting to talk about if their taxes are too high or something else. So we're trying to work with those groups to figure out how we could do that to make sure that we get as many people to the table to have this important conversation. So that's something we continue to work on, and obviously I'll continue to update everybody. Again, I think we'd like to try to have those meetings as quick as possible, but with trying to get multiple people to the table, it delays things a little bit. I think we all would have hoped to have these meetings earlier, but we do want to ensure that when we have this meeting, it targets exactly what we're trying to do and have a clear vision of hopefully getting all of these organizations to look at, what can we do in the community to try to impact this discussion. Some of the other things we've received from citizens has been Obama's foundation, My Brother's Keeper Alliance Communities is an opportunity potentially for the city to look at, where we could become a member. And typically what that involves is sending somebody from staff to do some training. And then that training then is either brought back, or we bring somebody from those organizations in to do, seminars and kind of webinars and different things like that. There's a 21-day racial equity habit building challenge that city staff is reviewing potentially ways to implement this for staff and as well out to the community. The National League of Cities has a race equity and leadership program that is staff is reviewing for potential ways to implement that. And the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, this is another organization that our library director, Jesse, kind of notified me about, that many libraries have joined, as well as a way to kind of continue, the conversations of race and equity. So I think essentially what, staff is looking for tonight is to continue this conversation, obviously in future meetings, but to look for any comments, concerns, questions, and if there's anything particularly out of kind of what we've talked about that there are concerns or that the Common Council would like to see kind of move forward to any type of formal action or discussion. So obviously I just threw a lot of information at you, but really it's to kind of open dialogue and have some conversations about where the City Council would like to see us go, to kind of provide staff a little better direction on certain things we should be looking at, or maybe if there's certain things we shouldn't be looking at. That's really kind of the first start of this conversation.
Okay, well, thank you, Adam. And maybe before I launch around the table here or anything, I'd like to make a comment, first of all, about the inclusivity goal. My recollection is that Ken, Eileen, and Robin were likely on the council when we did that goal setting. I know Kathy wasn't, Jason, I don't think you were on the council yet, and Isaac, you were not on the council. So this would have probably happened about, I'm gonna say 2 or 2.5 years ago. I definitely remember the conversation in the Mound City Bank Mortar Branch community room and the papers on the wall. So this inclusivity conversation is not particular, it's been an ongoing one. So let's talk first about this draft. I guess let's talk first about the draft statement on inclusivity. I actually see this as two kind of separate but related conversations. So the draft inclusivity statement, I think the 4 of us that were at that strategic planning session, and perhaps staff that were there too, have wondered how we get going. And Adam, so, I guess none of us thought about a draft inclusivity statement before. So let's talk about that. You've all had this in your packet. Robin, I'm going to start with you.
Gosh, the statement specifically, no, I had not thought of that. But I think when we were putting that goal together, I imagined that we would have a sort of commission or committee that would then be initially tasked with how are we putting this into action and promoting our stance and desires and hopes to show support through words and actions. The statement itself, I will say that reading it, I had just a few little questions, but really I don't think it's so much for me to respond to as to throw it out there for public discussion. The idea of an inclusivity team and having actively trained staff members as part of that team, I think is really important. I would love to see that happening sooner than later. So I suppose making that declaration would be the first step to kind of putting some action to our words and committing to that. So I think that's all I will say for right now. But I would say that this is It is a national conversation that the city of Platteville has definitely been experiencing and needing to address for some unique reasons, I think, geographically. So I'm glad that it's happening.
Okay, Eileen. I'm going to council members who were involved in making this goal first.
Yes, I think that having a draft inclusivity statement is helpful because it makes you think specifically about, is that what you think you meant when you talked about this subject? And I think it covers a lot of the comments that were made at that meeting. I think the only one that perhaps isn't there is we did talk about housing and the difficulty for some individuals to find housing, but that also is included by saying that we're treating everyone equally, and that would be the goal. So I think it's good that we have a draft to start with. I agree with Robin that having people have the opportunity to review it, add their input, and then having a couple of meetings where we gather that input and see if there's something that needs to be changed, added, deleted. But it's a very good start, Adam. I think that this will definitely jumpstart the conversation in a way that everybody has the same starting point. And I think that's what we were lacking when we would talk about this. It's like, well, what do you mean by it? What do I mean by it? If we start with this, then we can start there and then we can go on from there.
Ken.
Well, I read over the statement. Just my first comment about the statement is it needs to be clear enough to the people. Into this statement, there's some wording to me that would be unclear to people. So you need to make a real clear statement here as far as what this means. Probably people would look at more as diversity. And so you're bringing in inclusivity, and maybe that will confuse some people. Then I looked at the third paragraph, and I think the idea other communities might confuse some people. I thought the word identities might be a better word. So clarification as to what you're trying to put forth here with the use of this wording. I agree that there are a number of items that should be considered. We have some examples. I'm certainly for the beginning with the one as far as aid can wait, and also looking at what might come from the federal level as far as the House and the Senate, what they're going to pass, if anything. I hope that they do and not just fight back and forth. And also something else that struck me was an article I saw in the paper the other day about student and voting. So you may think that that's not important here, but with the students we have on campus, voting needs to be easy for students. It needs to be easy for the citizens of Platteville. And I think we need to work on making easy voting for everybody. And Wisconsin is one of the hardest states to vote in. So there are too many barriers for people as far as voting. So there's too much exclusion of some of the people with the way our voting system is set up. Well, that's what I want to say for now.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Kathy.
Because it's such a huge topic and I wasn't involved in the first go round with this, I would definitely applaud the efforts to pursue the community forum. And just one note that when I was reading through this, if the idea of inclusivity, what about youth in general? When we're talking about it says people of color and other communities. Well, there is a large group of youth. Do they need to have a voice? Do we need to involve them more? But, and I also think it's a good idea to put together a community inclusivity team once some of the forum, at least the forum process moves forward, to get what the people really have expectations for.
Okay. Jason.
All right, so as I was reading through the inclusivity statement, one of the things that I don't know if we can look at focusing more on, or using the term equity versus equality. I think equity is much different than equality in terms of what we're looking at and kind of what's going on in our country right now. That was really the only thing from the statement that I would say, you know, changing that terminology from equality to equitable. I do like the idea of having an ongoing committee or group that meets regularly and continues to keep this line of communication open between the people in the community, and then also the people that are in leadership positions as well, whether that's city staff, the council, other committees, that type of thing. I think that's going to be important. In terms of like forums and all that, one concern that I have is that making sure that we have a well-trained facilitator. I've been involved in conversations similar to this and trainings and things, and I've had experiences where the facilitator was not very skilled at kind of facilitating the meeting, and things kind of go off track, or you know, things are said and they're not addressed. So especially with this, I feel like having a well-trained facilitator is going to be important to help have good conversations around this. Trying to think of anything else right now. Those are the main things that kind of stood out for me and the main things that I wanted to bring forth. So.
Okay. Isaac.
Just a couple of things. I pretty much agree with everybody that has spoken before me on pretty much all aspects of what has been brought up here. One thing that Jason just brought up that I really think we need to work on too is if we do have a community forum, as he had stated, to have a facilitator that knows how to run the forum. So it was something that Adam had brought up, is that, you know, so we're not talking about taxes. We're not talking about stuff that is not on topic here. So, but again, I just think it's a discussion that, you know, applaud the three people that were on the council before that it started it and kept it going. And I think everybody should keep it going, whether you're on the council or if you're just a community member. So that's about it.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. And I fully support it. I do support a public, you talked about getting community feedback, and I certainly support that too. Ken, I agree there was some wording that kind of confused me, and so we'll talk about that. I'm going to ask our audience, James, do you want to weigh in? And it's really not fair if you don't have it in front of you, but, or maybe you do by now.
No, I don't.
Oh, there we go.
No, I don't have it, but I would like to comment.
Okay.
I'd first like to thank Adam for having the insight to attempt to make this proposal. I'm also very concerned that the city council didn't see that this was something that was urgent enough to make a proclamation about. with what's happened most recently and what's been ongoing and what's continuing to happen. So to hear the city council say that they wasn't preparing or wasn't sure that that was necessary for one to be made at this time was a bit alarming to me. I understand that you may have attempted to put one together several years ago, and that may have been tabled, but now with the urgency of what's happening right now, I think this should be at the forefront to make a proclamation to show that the city is not going to be involved in any white supremacy, white privilege, and things of this nature, because the other entities has already made these proclamations. I've worked with the school board, who's just devised one. I've worked with the library, and they've devised one. So every other entity has attempted to do a proclamation, and to hear that the city council wasn't that concerned about one concerns me. So with Adam bringing it to the table and bringing it to the forefront, that's really, really cool. And I think the subcommittee would be very good, because that way they would have a direct ear to the city council and could maybe get, wouldn't have to worry about being heard. And that's a really good idea. And for this statement to be also posted and to have feedback on it is necessary, because if you've not talked to Black people directly, it's going to be very difficult to put together a proclamation, because you might feel one way or the other. That may or may not be the true feelings of the Black or other people that's involved. So I think it's necessary to have a dialogue with Black people. And I think that Adam has went out to other entities. I've seen him at the university. So I really appreciate his input, and I really appreciate him bringing that to the forefront. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. Frank, did you want to weigh in? I see.
Yes.
I don't see you, but I see your name.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was on mute. I pushed audio mute, but I forgot to do it. Didn't realize I pushed video mute.
There we go.
All right. Sorry. So I want to follow along with what James said. I kind of agree. I think that the statement, because the city council has not made a statement yet, the statement needs to be really strong and do a total disavowing of systemic racism from a national standpoint and also from a local standpoint. I think if that is done, that would retain some of the confidence that disenfranchised members of the community have towards the leadership of Platteville. And so I think that if that statement is very strong and is true disavowal and sincere and heartfelt, along with leadership attending and being a part of the forum, I think that would be a great step to trying to address any type of systemic issues here. I do agree with Jason in the facilitator needs to actually have really good skills in doing this. I told Doug and Adam both that I nominate my wife, Keisha King, who is a fourth grade teacher at Westview. She's prior military, retired military, and so she's definitely someone who has the chops to make any type of challenge with anybody trying to go off topic. So I definitely recommend that. Other than that, I think that the sooner the better. I know that with COVID, we couldn't find a facility, with other problems that are taking place because of scheduling conflicts and everything. I think that if we did something sooner than later, I think that would be a much better thing. I would highly recommend to do it within the next week or two, and definitely not wait until mid to late July.
Okay, Adam, do we have, we've talked about the inclusivity statement. And I know you have, we have this meeting scheduled tomorrow to discuss further about the forum. And I know Doug's posted his can't wait response on the city website. Do we have a time, do you want the city council to adopt this inclusivity statement, or do we want to put this out? What was your plan, to put this out for public comment first and then adoption at a subsequent meeting?
That was my thought process, is what I've seen other municipalities do. Yes, is first they, to kind of Frank and James' point, the Common Council would issue some form of a statement that basically hits the key points of exactly what he talked about, and said one of the first steps we're trying to do is obviously create this inclusivity working statement. And what we want is, we want feedback from the community, and that would go on the website, it would go on social media, and then there's a couple of different ways we could try to tackle it. Either we do a public forum. During the public forum, we have the opportunity to talk about anything you want, so racism, name the inclusivity topic, or you just specifically, you do both. You talk about the statement, you talk about, this is the opportunity for people to come and voice any comments, concerns, good, bad, ugly. That's what it's for. I think that would kind of be the intention or the recommendation I would make, is I think we look at, we get this statement out there and understand it's a draft, and that the wording can change, the wording can be different, there can be things added, but I think it would look to say, it'd be something we would get out to the press, and working with Jody and saying, the Common Council on this day talked about this topic. This is our first, action that we want to take, is creating this statement, and we need to hear from you. We want to hear if you agree with this inclusive statement. We want to hear if you don't, and what things you would take out, or what things we're missing. And that would kind of be the first step here. And then look at, just like, Frank kind of indicated, is move forward with trying to get some forums scheduled, whether it's, just the city that does it, or if we can get something, together where it's, us, the school district, and multiple members, maybe we have multiple meetings, and we do one where it's just the city first, and then we say, hey, we're, continuing to work down this. I think the key we want to start building now is, the fact that we're not just sitting, we're not sitting on our hands. We are trying to, to put some things forward, and obviously that may take some time, but that would be my thought.
Okay, so this is not on, adoption of an inclusivity statement is not on the agenda for tonight. But I believe that we could have some consensus of the council in terms of moving forward. And I would be more than willing to work with Adam in terms of getting some kind of statement out, and Jody and others, that says this is the direction of the Common Council, and we are soliciting feedback. From what I've heard from people, is that I guess if we were having a work session, we'd go around the table and people would nod their heads and stuff. So is there, would you, and I'm going to go, for lack of a better way to do it, I'm just going to go around council member by council member, because it's kind of hard to figure out how else to do it. Ken, are you comfortable with us putting this statement out to the public, and is it starting to get feedback back?
Yes, I'd approve of that.
Okay, Kathy?
I think I'm okay with that. I just question, as long as it was presented that this is, it's
a draft.
An initial, yeah, it's a draft.
Yep, we would say it's
but
a draft.
That, but that we really want the public, because they may come up with something that needs to be included, that should be included.
Okay. Eileen?
Yes, I think we put it out there and say, we're starting the conversation. We need your input.
Okay. Isaac?
Yes.
Robin?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, when I admitted that I had not thought to make this statement as a priority over the committee, that's a separate kind of thought process I was just admitting to. As far as in response to recent current events, I believe I was up front asking the city and fire department to make a statement. So most certainly felt the urgency, but I also went to Black leadership asking for some feedback. So I think my words were maybe misunderstood there. Absolutely emphasize the importance of support moving forward on this.
And Jason?
Yeah, I'd say move as quickly as possible.
All right, so we will do that. And Robin, thank you. I think probably the thing that the four of us that were on the council when we talked about this originally was sometimes it's how do you start, and then change in city leadership at the time didn't really enable that. So I think you're right. I think this has been in the forefront of all of our minds, and so and we will move. So
I think sometimes it's for fear of doing it wrong or wanting to take the best approach. So overthinking it as opposed to acting, but really just we can't look back. We have to look forward.
Yep. That's right. Okay, so we have a plan, and we will keep people. I mean, you'll see that, and so as you have this statement now it's in the packet and stuff, you should feel free as a council member and others to share it, because really how that message gets out is very important. So we'll be asking, probably that this statement is shared with all the boards and commissions and committees, because that's a way to share it within a group that we have engaged as volunteers and work with. We'll be reaching out to other leadership and asking them to share it. So, and then using the newspapers. So it's the responsibility of all of us to seek that input and to put that input to good use. So
Barb, may I just add that, sometimes people may forget that as you mentioned earlier, if you go to platteville.org and go under Common Council, you will see every agenda and packet for every meeting. And so if you have the opportunity to do that, you certainly could read all this information that we're looking at every meeting and could have perused this ahead of time. Jody, I think also, I don't know if it goes on Facebook or it's on YouTube later, is that correct? Okay,
yeah,
it's available there as well.
Okay, Adam, do we have enough direction on that so that we can move on to the next agenda item, which is COVID-19 municipal building, library, and museum updates, I guess.
I think we'll just continue to, we'll probably have this start to be a continuing agenda item on our agenda with activity updates, and we'll just continue to hammer through, options and alternatives.
Okay, so Adam presented information about City Hall reopening by appointment this week, Monday. And so it's Tuesday. Adam, how has that gone?
So far, it's been going very well. We haven't had any issues. The majority of people coming in have been very responsive and following kind of the recommendations. We've got hand sanitizer out. We've got the masks. We've got, sneeze guards that we put up, and social distancing we continue to do as staff. And we're very, respectful of the people that want to wear a mask or don't want to wear a mask. We try to work with them and make sure that we're maintaining our distance. And yeah, so far it seems to be going very well.
Okay, Eric, you have anything you want to say about museum and museum reopening?
Sure. The museum is excited to reopen next week. Our soft reopening is Monday, June 29th for members, and then on July 1st for all. The process is by reservation, and then people do have a process once they arrive in the museum to comply with restrictions for safety. And we have had some help from other city departments in preparing for that reopening. Shannon is going to be working to install a sneeze guard for employees here. Hopefully by week's end, and we've met with
the fire department to help centralize some ordering of hand sanitizer and other things. Adam and others have been real generous in walking through the museum and helping to think through certain processes. So I'm optimistic. Other programs are postponed, except moving to a virtual space. So the big exciting news is really the 4th of July virtual Heritage Day programming. So our staff has been working hard to both create lots of new videos and to learn video editing in order to produce these neat broadcasts for the 4th of July. So I hope everyone enjoys that.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Jesse, you want to talk to us a little bit about the library? Jesse, we can't hear you. You have to put your mute off.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. We're in our second week of offering curbside pickup for library materials. That's gone over really well and continues to grow in popularity, especially with the official end of the school year. The computer service thus far has been a little slow. We're working on promoting that through less digital mediums. Obviously, if you are needing to come to the library to use a computer, our Facebook ad promoting that service is not going to be reaching you. We are seeing increases in that slightly, and it's a lot of times for things that you might not have at home, like a printer or a scanner. So those are services that people are eager to take advantage of. The library board will hold their regular library board meeting next Wednesday, and at that point we will discuss whether we're ready to move into a phase 2 and what that would look like. We get the impression that patrons miss browsing the stacks and picking out items for themselves, but we also know that the virus can live on surfaces for up to 3 days, and we've been very cautious with sanitizing materials as they're returned to us, but we kind of lose control over sanitizing library materials once you invite the public in to browse. So we're working on a plan that would be kind of a happy medium, and date to be determined on when that might happen.
Okay. Adam, there was no information about the senior center.
Got that right here for you because I got an update from John. I do want to give kudos to Jessie and her staff. If you guys have not seen it, they did a amazing video with, I believe, kids about how to use the curbside. So I will send that to the council leadership so you can watch that. I think it's on our Facebook page, but kudos to them for kind of, again, and Eric as well, both the museum and the library have come up with some, we're all pivoting and trying to learn different ways of getting information out there. So I think both of them have done an amazing job in finding ways to try to communicate with residents and come up with compromises that continues to offer services but also be safe. So I want to give kudos to both of them for the work that they've been doing. And Eric has a new website, so if you haven't seen that, check that out. The museum has a great website there. So, but yes, I did hear from John, and pretty much what they indicated is they're kind of hoping to cautiously phase in-person programming as the situation allows. In the meantime, they're making sure area senior basic needs are met by continuing to provide grocery shopping and prescription pickup services, safe and sanitary transportation, wellness checks, delivery of food pantry distribution, and assistance with Monday through Friday hot home meal deliveries. They recently sponsored and assisted with a free meal at the Platteville Unity Methodist Church. They served about 160 meals to those in need. They're currently in the process of putting together collections of locally produced non-perishable food and other staple items for distribution to seniors in danger of going without. Beginning in July, they're going to be doing virtually making available some of their more popular programming, including 3 historic Platteville image presentations, classes on Alzheimer's and dementia care, senior-specific health topics, travel, cultural presentations, and more. And then internally, the pause on on-site programming coincides with significant change in our space usage. at OE Gray. Basically, they were able to get more space, so they're looking at kind of redoing the way that they normally have done things. So they're hopeful when participants return, they'll be treated to a larger, more accommodating senior center, allowing for both greater and social interaction. So that's the
Okay.
update.
Good. Does any council person have questions about reopening procedures anywhere? Ken, any questions? Could be museum, could be senior center, could be library, could be any other department. Any questions?
My question is where, as far as City Hall, are you presenting all these items for people to view? Where are they going to get access to the routine that they're supposed to follow?
So we have that information posted, obviously on our website. We did a social media video that went out on, I think, Sunday, and we also posted it again on Monday that kind of shows exactly how we gave them a basic tour that says, this is the door we want you to come in. You come through here, you turn. We showed them kind of the reception area. So that's kind of the approach we plan to do when we go to, right now we're tentatively looking at July 13th as kind of being the reopening of all of our kind of City Hall. We're planning to do, again, that kind of social promotion. The paper has done a nice job of both the Telegraph Herald and the Platteville Journal have done a good job of kind of updating that information as well. So we're going to continue to try to promote that information as much as possible.
Okay. Kathy, any questions about any departments, procedures, or reopenings?
No questions, Barb. Just a comment, though. I think each of the departments is to be commended for their extreme efforts with working the last couple of months and moving forward, getting things opened up again. Fantastic job.
Eileen?
Oh, I don't have any questions or comments.
Isaac?
No questions.
Robin?
I'm curious if there was any promotion or encouragement for staff to do the testing that occurred last week. Not that I need to know everyone's results, but just curious if it was required or good participation or where you were with that.
We sent all that information out to basically all of our staff, letting them know that the testing was available. And if they did want to do it, they certainly could work with either a supervisor or department head, and we would allow their schedule to be kind of amended or give them the ability to go and do it. So we had a couple of employees that obviously took that opportunity.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions.
I have a comment.
Oh.
A comment about presentation or where to present things. What is your thinking about presenting in 53818?
Yes, we are actually working on an article that is going to kind of recap everything that we've been talking about. So I think Jody gave me a deadline. I got till Friday. So I'm working on that right now to get that updated with pretty much everything we've been talking about so that we have that in the 53818 that'll go out here in August. So.
Okay. Jason, it was your turn.
No questions.
Okay. So I do believe that it's good to see some movement around, and it's good to know that people can make appointments. And again, thanks to all the staff for accommodating. And if you have not, council members, if you have not been to City Hall or any of these places and seen the face shields and the plexiglass separators and stuff, I mean, there's been a lot of work done, and I didn't even ask Ryan and Doug to comment tonight, so we won't do that. So I think that's the end of our agenda. So that means I only have one motion that I'm looking for.
And move to adjourn.
I believe I heard a motion by Kathy to adjourn and a second by Robin. And so we will vote, Candace. Oh, you have to turn yourself.
Doss?
On you. Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Hart.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
Okay, and thanks everyone for attending, and thank you, Jody, for being the host for this meeting. All righty.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you later.